Hello there and welcome to my Arty Corner here on YouTube. My name's Angela Porter, and I'm an artist, probably best known for my colouring books, but here on YouTube I tend to try to give you ideas and encourage you to explore your own creativity. Colour is the thing that vexes me. Drawing I really enjoy, particularly when it concerns patterns, abstract patterns, stylised things, and very whimsical as well. I just feel there's not enough whimsy in the world, or at least we need things to make us smile, I think. If you look at the news, it's easy to get very fed up, depressed and see everything in a bad light. So I just want to bring things that are pretty and make people smile into the world through my art, to give us all a break from everything. So before I start talking about what's in front of me, I'd like to say thank you to everybody who has subscribed to my channel. You're all stars, absolute stars, and I appreciate you clicking that button so much. I'd also say if you're here for the first time and you enjoy what you see, or if you're returning and you haven't subscribed, please consider clicking that button. It's totally free, it doesn't cost you anything, you don't owe me your soul or YouTube your soul. It just shows that you're enjoying the content that I'm doing and you like to come back. And you will earn in return my eternal gratitude and the appellation that you too are stars. But you are stars anyway. Absolute stars, each and every one of you. Thank you also for all the lovely comments and for thumbs ups and for sharing and giving shout outs as well. I really appreciate that. And if you share your art with me on social media, please tag me, but please be aware that if you send me a message through my Facebook page rather than my usual day-to-day Facebook account, it may take me a while to remember to go and check for things there. So I'm not offended if somebody says, I sent you a message but you haven't replied. Please just let me know, because I just forget to go there. It's not something I do regularly. In fact, sometimes I think I ought to close the page down because it's just there. I don't really get it because everybody comes to my main Facebook account usually. But anyway, I witter on. So, and I do love to see what you do that's inspired by me. I really, really do. Actually, I'm pretty rubbish at checking on Instagram as well. I'm just not good at this. So please bear with me and understand. I do my best. It's not always good enough, but I try. So what I've got here in front of me was some art that I got totally lost in yesterday. I woke up not long after 4 in the morning, I think it was, and I knew it would be a while before I could go back to sleep, so I thought I'll do some art. And this is what I ended up with. I was sat in bed with glue and paper and distress inks and my sketchbook and a drawing board, and I sort of spent time collaging and writing and doing everything. But it started with this one down here, where I thought, okay, I've downloaded some digital papers that I can print, and some of them have got sort of vintagey lined paper in, school paper and so on. I thought, okay, let's have a go with this and see where I go. And so I took a little piece here. Actually, there's 2 pieces there because the first time I misspelt believe, and the second time I thought, right, actually I think I did it 3 times. I think the third time I wrote the words in pencil first and checked my spelling before I inked them in. And then added the border. I know next I did this. I think I did this, then this, and worked my way down. And it's okay. But there's something about me putting something like this in the middle. It just does not feel right to me. I don't know why well, it's not in the middle. It's sort of like in the top third-ish. It just doesn't feel right to me. And I haven't been able to pinpoint why. I don't know what it is. It's just, I go, it just doesn't look right to me about my stuff. I don't know what it is. So I thought, okay then, let's try putting strips right the way across a space. And this was the next one I did here. This actually, though, I did pick up a piece of distress inked paper, like coloured. And I collaged various strips of paper here. I think this was the second go at the saying, they're all the same. When people show you who they are, believe them. It's from Maya Angelou. And I spelt it right the second time, because I think I penciled it in. I could be wrong. No, I didn't stick a second sheet there. I remember what I did. I wrote it here and I got it completely wrong. So I covered it in black alcohol ink, and then you can see I've got golden stripes there as part of the pattern, because black looks, or gold looks really good on black. I used alcohol markers to add shadow here. I didn't up here. I just used a dark brown fine liner. This is drawn with the Zig Kuretake Zig writer pens, which have permanent ink in them. But then I thought, right, okay, let's use, because I'd used, you know, such thick paper that it hasn't bled through, because, you know, this layer of paper here stopped it. But the alcohol ink here bled dreadfully. I had a nightmare of a time, and it is what it is. It's sketchbook, is what I say. It's sketchbook. I'm trying out ideas here. I'm practicing my lettering. I'm making a mess of it. An alcohol ink here. And part of me thinks, oh, those shadows are just a bit heavy-handed. But then they also give an awful lot of dimension to this. And I quite find that fun. So I ought to do something up there. Oh, here I used Inktense pencils here, and I want to add some gold in here, and perhaps some of these filled in gold. Not sure what I'm going to do with these and everything else. I'll work that eventually. Then I did this one, where I'd used quite a number of papers. This strip here lies on top of, this is one strip, and then those lie on top of this, which is another piece of paper. All slightly different in colour. I love this bit at the top. I used, again, it's the Zig Writers, and it's this lovely sagebush green it is, but it wouldn't have worked on here because it's more of a purpley bluey colour. So I picked out a very pale sort of like grey purple, which didn't really show up the pattern, so I drew a darker blue triangle inside, which was a bit too much, and then I put, and you lost the other ones, so I put white in between, and it's sort of, it creates a pattern that reminds me of rocks, fossils in rocks, fossil coral, but it's not coral, but it reminds me of that kind of finish. Just plain black pen here. And I did use some alcohol markers for shadows, because again, this is on distress inked paper as well. But I really like this up here. And I suddenly realised I actually quite like using coloured pens for drawing with in this kind of circumstance. I struggle with it mostly. Then this was the last one I did, and I did use a black pen to draw all the patterns, you know, at the top, this one. I know it's a Zentangle filler pattern, but I can't remember the name of it. And down here I started with these, which are, I don't know, I guess it's kind of like Hollis, but it's not. And then over here it ended up going into something, and it's got more of a Mayan feel about it. And I quite enjoyed doing that. But colour I added here, I did use a darker green pen to fill the spaces here with tipple, and just put a shadow underneath here with Inktense pencil. And here the same, I think I used Ionian green. And I quite like this, and I like that monochrome feel, and the fact that the Ionian green is very similar to this green, so they work together. When they're separated, you don't really tell there's a difference between them. And the vintagey papers here work nicely with them. I'd also coloured this square with distress ink. You can see the colour around the outside edge. I'm not worried if it goes outside the pencil lines. So that's where I got to yesterday, and that was about, I don't know, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So 12 hours later. No work done. Yeah. And then this morning I woke up just before 5. An improvement on yesterday, but I didn't get to sleep until later. And I sat in bed, surrounded by distress inks, papers, glue, scissors, drawing boards. This is a page from my sketchbook. And thought, okay then, let's have a go at this again. So I divided my page up. I've put these collage papers down. Only 2 layers in each case. I tried to tear paper so it would different sizes. So the one I want to write on is slightly smaller than the other, and different shapes and raggedy edges and all sorts. You know, I want it to look like it's deliberately torn, that's supposed to be what it is. And so this was the first one I did. And yeah, I did pencil in that. And I did have the letters spaced nicely. But Still I Rise looks like one word, Stilly Rise. I've got no idea what Stilly Rise is. But I'm there going, I penciled it in. The spacing was fine. And I inked it in and I completely ignored it. Sometimes I really wonder about me. For the background here, I used a fine liner pen from Arteza, one of their ink tonics. And it was a lovely sort of like grey blue. And I'll come back to how it looks the way it does in a moment, because once I'd finished that, I went down to this one and I used blues, it was sort of greeny colour in the background. I think it was Evergreen Bough. And I think this was tea dye, is the brownie bits. Here I used some Victorian velvet and the tea dye, but I let the colours fade one over another. And here, sort of like I used some pinkies. There was some seedless preserves on the bit of cut and dry foam I used, and that went over here, speckled egg and the tea dye. And I'm really surprised at what a good job I've made of it, especially considering I was working with a light, not daylight or, bright light. And I'm thinking perhaps I ought to do that more often because my colour choices seem to work better. Anyway, so here I drew the patterns on, but it's ended up Rebecca Blairish because I made use of these patterns. And here the ink bled into the edge of this paper whenever I touched the side of the ink tonic fine liner, the edge of the nib here, the ink would soak into it so much. It's printer paper. There's nothing special about it. But it actually didn't bleed as much as it is there. I'll come back to that. And I was looking at it and it's sort of like when you colour in with fine liners on this paper, or perhaps because of the distressing, it's really patchy. It's not my way of wanting to do things. So down here I thought, okay, I'll use water to smooth that out. Well, I ended up with something that looks quite distressed, not quite as distressed as it does there, washed out. Here I thought I'd use water to blend these lines out a bit and give a different look and feel to this. This is it. This is what that looked like without water. And down here I thought I'd fill in the triangles by putting water in there and then allowing the ink to flow into the water just to add some colour there, which worked nicely. But this one, I thought, I wonder what will happen if I splatter some water on there. And you might see some little water drops there. That's what happens. I used a paper towel to pick them up. And I thought, I wonder what happens if I spray this lightly with water and then prick it up. Try and get little spatters rather than a fine spray. I did that, but a lot of water came out the sprayer. I need a new water sprayer. I used a paper towel to pick it up and I got this lovely distressed pattern. And because this became wet, and the ink was wet here, it really wicked into the edge of the paper. And I got this lovely effect there. And I thought, I quite like that. Really grungy, and that's why this paper is all bent. So what I thought I'd do, I used Inktense pencil there to colour these in. I think the outlines need to be a thicker line though, so I can do that later. They're not quite as sophisticated or as bold as the ones I did yesterday, but it's all trial and error. It's all working out what I'm going to do. So I thought today, so I've got an appointment just before midday. I haven't had a bath yet, but I'll get there. I will get there. And so I may have to edit the video after my appointment when I get back home. But I thought I'd just come here and do this because I know I can't settle down to do work as such because I'm a bit wound up about the appointment and about something else, and something's weighing on my mind at the moment. So I'm just using a piece of cut and dry foam, the black side down, just to add some colour to this piece of paper. This is the Artwyrd mixed media paper. And it's lovely because it's made from 50% recycled paper coffee cups, which I approve of. Okay, so I'm just going to get, oh gosh, ouch. Oh, I'm just bashing everything today. I'm just not, yeah, it's one of those days. I'm just not doing well, I guess. I'm going to get some of that seedless, I think it's called seedless preserves. I'm just going to tap that very lightly. I'm just going to add a little hint of that in here and there. I'm hoping it's going to show up on here. I think it does a little bit, not much. And I'm going to add a hint of the Victorian velvet as well, perhaps, because it's a slightly different pinky colour. So that'll do there, perhaps a little bit over this side just to balance it up. Okie dokes. And I am also going to come back with some tea dye, I think it was. I'm almost positive it was tea dye. Distress ink called tea dye. Oh gosh, that's way too much. Oh well, it is what it is. A lot more than I wanted, but it is what it is. And the other thing I wanted to do here, so I finished with that and that. Oh, have I got, I know I need a new, oh gods, perhaps I shouldn't be doing this. There we go. Spray some water on, pick some of that up, and all will be fine and well in the world. Well, I hope it will. Or at least with this piece of paper, it's picked some of the colour up and it's a bit on the moist side now. But I will add a little hint of that blue again, and even if it's wet, it'll be what it is. That's a bit better. I really was just a tad heavy-handed with that. Brown, so I'm just going to add a little bit of the purple in. Just here and there, just like that. So that's, actually I'm quite happy with that. It looks like really old plastered wall. The other thing I wanted to do was to add perhaps a little bit of stenciling in here in the background, just for that bit of variation. So I've got a brush here. It's just a makeup brush that's, you can buy them really relatively inexpensively now. And I think they all pretty much work in a very similar kind of way, to be honest. So I'm just adding some here. I'm just going to have a look and see if it's come through. It's not. There's a bit there, and we will add some up here as well. It's just a very subtle hint there. Bearing in mind this is likely to be covered with patterns or drawings and so on, but you never know. I might like it enough just as it is for it to remain just as it is. So let me just pop these out of the way. Okay, I need my ruler, which is over here, because I'm going to have a look through some patterned papers to see what I would like to pop on here. I've cut them all out ready, as in I've got a little box full of bundled up bits and bobs. I quite like this colour to go with this. It's similar enough but dissimilar enough that I think it'd work. So what I want to do here is I just want to straighten that edge up a bit. Shame I'm going to lose those little dots there because I quite like the dots. I'm just putting my ruler sort of like a line with the edge of the paper I've just coloured, and I'm just going to use that to tear the paper on. It's a lot easier for me than using so which side do I want? I could use that side, I could use that side. I think I'll use this one, and I'm just going to tear it like so. And then the other side, I'm just going to tear a little bit off this, just to give it, again, that raggedy edge. I could end up with having to tear another piece, because that is quite narrow, but it's fine. Okay, I have got here some of this paper. I think I want to tear it this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line that end up, that side up with the edge of this paper, exactly the same as I did with the other piece. Wrong way round, Angela. What are you thinking? You had it the right way around the first time. So my problem today is I'm not thinking. All these little bits of paper I'm keeping for future collages. But what I want here is I want a piece of paper that I could possibly write a quote in. So I've got these two, so one will lie on top of the other, won't they, with bits showing out underneath. But I wouldn't mind a slightly bigger piece showing underneath. So what about that one? Does that one? This is quite nice, but let me have a look here. I can see something poking out. What about having bits of that underneath these? That could turn out quite nicely, couldn't it? So again, I'm just going to take that end off, because that end is quite uninspiring. It's nice, but it's a lot darker and denser. I want the other side really for this, like so. And I am going to just tear along an edge, because I like this torn edge, torn texture. And then let's have a look. I want something that will stick out underneath this one, and like so. So we've got that one. Then we'll have that one, and I can offset them perhaps, and then that one. Could do with a slightly bigger piece of this though, couldn't I? Yeah, let's just go wide and see which one I prefer. It's lovely, this. This is from a shop online called Which Craft Do You Do? And it's Witch, spelled W-H-I-C-H. Witchcraft, and then Do You Do. Witchcraft is one word. And they have some lovely digital stuff there. And if you've got a printer and you can print it, I'm just discovering the joys of this. So that, I think that will do. Right, let me tidy up the little bits I'm not going to keep. I hoard tiny little pieces. You know, I've printed this out with ink and paper. You know, I'm not going to waste things that I may use, because little scraps do work for me. Pop that away. I don't think I want anything else here. I think those will do quite nicely, but what I do want to do is to give these a bit of an edge with some distressing. So I'm just going to use what's on this sponge, which I think is mostly rusty hinge actually, just to go around the edge. Now you may prefer to have paper that's cut out really neatly and you know, very square and whatever. That's fine. You do what you like. I've worked out that just feels too, I don't know why I prefer this. Perhaps it's because it gives me that permission to be, well, not so precise, or it gives some, or perhaps it's because it's a contrast to how precise I can be when I draw patterns and so on. I don't know. Perhaps it's because my not so wonderful hand lettering looks a bit, you know, in keeping with this, aged and grungy and what have you. So the only thing I need to do now is to glue these down. So I do have here, got this Tombow multi mono multi glue, which I do like. And I'm trying not to put too much down. It's got a fine nozzle, so I am trying to get a little bit over most areas, especially on the edges. But I'm not trying to create a whole entire sort of layer here. So I'm going to put it roughly across the middle. Then there's this piece. So where do I want this? That's quite nice because I have pieces sticking out above and below it. So I like that. So again, I'm just trying to get little dots here. I'm barely squeezing the bottle, which is a good thing because yesterday I did this and I had you barely squeezing it because it was so warm after sitting in my window. All right, let me just get that up a little bit. The globs were coming out. So that works nicely. And then I've got this piece. Which side do I want that on? I could have it that way or this way. I quite like that way because, yeah, there I think. Because I've got bits of that paper showing top and bottom and bits where it hides, so that'll be nice. It's not critical, but, you know, because I'm never going to stick it on exactly where I wanted it. And then I'll just, well, it's going to go where it goes now because I've stuck it down. So I've now got this and a piece of paper that I've used for that. And I've got my lid for my little box that I'm keeping all of these in. So that can go nicely out of the way. I can tidy up the distress inks and so on. Oh, because I'm bound to fall over that box if I don't. Bound to fall over it if I do. Oh look, one of them. So that's worked quite nicely. Now then, which way up would I like that? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter until I put the quote on. And part of me is thinking perhaps I ought to print my quote out in little pieces that I can cut up and put on here and collage those on. That's always a possibility. But I'm not too sure at the moment. So, next job, I want to find a pen colour that will go with these. No, I'll use one of these because I need to test these pen colours. I've got blues in here, haven't I? I think this might be a nice blue to use. Yeah, that one. I don't want to get too fancy schmancy with colours, though I'm looking to see if I've got something that's a bit of a dusky pink. I don't think I have. I think this will be too light to show up yet. That one looks like it will be, yeah, too... I'm always hoping that in sets of pens you'll end up with some quite vintagey colours. And I haven't found that yet. Oh, what's this one? Oh, that's a brownie brown. I haven't got any reddish browns in here, which isn't a problem, not unless this is one. Oh no, that's a brown. So we have a look on the third tray. They're all so bright. What's this one like? That's very pale. I don't think it's going to show up. It's a nice colour though. Okay, have I got any others on there that might work on this? What's this one like? That's more of a purpley colour. So which one? I think I might go with this purpley colour actually. Pop this one back in its own tray. How long will these remain, do you think, in the tray before they get put into a pot? The answer is it ain't going to be very long. I can tell you that. That way down so I can see the ends. Okay, glass is required. So I've got choices because here I did this, which is that kind of Rebecca Blair inspired sort of like layers, you know, and bits and pieces. Or this, where I used two different patterns. This sort of like, I used Diva Dance and I used one up there, which is one of my favourite ones, which is just lines that become thicker at one end. They curve and they nest. Have a look here. What do I do here? So I've got these where again, it's using these. This one again is one of these top and bottom distinct one. This one has more layers in it. I'm not quite sure which I prefer. I think I'll go with the layers and we'll make a start, though I am going to finish very quickly because it's been 40 minutes. I've done a lot of talking. And one thing I know I don't want to do is I don't want to get too... I could get close to this edge because if I do end up spraying this, it's not going to be too much of a problem if it bleeds into this paper. But what can I do? See, I automatically go to Crescent Moon, don't I? Actually, I think I might. I don't know if you saw that there. I just managed to catch the corner of that paper with the edge of this pen and it just bled in. And again there, because it's hard to see sometimes exactly where the edge of the paper is. So I am going to use this, and I think I will do some Diva Dance. I may not fill all of this in with Diva Dance, but I just think it'll make a nice transition from one to the other. And this pen is behaving differently on this paper. It's exactly the same paper as the piece I drew on here. But can you see the ink spreads so much more on here? That's the effect of the distress ink, and also I sprayed the paper with water, so it may still be a little bit damp. But it is what it is, and I'll work with it regardless. In fact, if anything, this paper is working better with these than the sketchbook paper. My all media paper is, I love it, but it does have quite a lot of texture, and sometimes it's really quite hard on pens, but this may just be because of the distress ink and the water here. Not really sure. Or it could just be that this pen is really, really juicy because I can see how much ink is coming out of this pen. But it's nice that they are quite water soluble because you can then get some lovely effects. So I'm just going to do that and perhaps add another one. This is much darker than I wanted. Again, it's because the way it's reacting with the paper. But I know how I can lighten it, don't I? I most probably will do that in a moment. So I'm just going to finish this here. And then I think I'll just pop on perhaps the usual couple of lines where I don't do any of the thicker blobs there. Okay, I'll tell you what I am going to do. If I can get this out. Ugh, wrong one. Let me have a look here. Have I got any purples in that one? Have I got any lighter purples anywhere? Because I think I'd like to. Let me have a look. Got that one. I have this one. This one I think might be a bit darker. This one, oh God, as I throw. I tell you what. So let me have a look here, because what I might do is just have a look at perhaps adding some more in, but with this other colour. That's interesting. This one isn't as juicy as the previous one. How interesting is that? So I'm carrying on with Diva Dance, but I'm changing the colour. So we've got a paler purpley colour here. Yeah. And perhaps I'll just pop a couple of the lines on the edge. I'll leave that one there. And what I'm going to do is, I threw that piece of paper in the distress ink box. There we go. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a brush and some water. And hopefully, perhaps if I pop this over here, let's put some splatters of water on here. Not one of the best skills I have, splattering. But it is just water. There's nothing in the water. And I'll do the same so it's on the distress ink as well. And then I need some tissue. This is one I used earlier, but it'll work. I'm just going to pick the water up, and I've got that all distressed there. It is all a bit darker than I want. So what I'm going to do again, I'm just going to spray with water, and I'm just going to use my tissue just to pick that up, just to dull this down a bit. And it really does become quite ghostly. This will take a while to dry. And I actually quite like that ghostly kind of version. When it's dried, I may go back and add some more distress ink over the top, which will help to disguise that even further, but it's something to do. And if I compare that with this one from this morning, I think these colours are just that little bit too bright for what I was looking for. This one would have been a better choice. But it is what it is, and it's all part and parcel of learning. And these papers have got quite wet, even though I covered them up. But that's fine, and some of the colours, leached into that, and so on. The ink that I've used the ink I've got in my inkjet printer is water resistant or waterproof, which is fab. So anything I print out isn't affected by water. The paper is, but the ink isn't. But just to give you some ideas, is that if I want what my lettering is, or the quote I put on there is, if I decide to go with printing it, typing it in and printing it out that way, I want that to be the thing that's most noticeable, but the patterns to be in the background. Of course, this one I can knock back as well with white gesso, as I need to do with these. So I wanted to share this so you can see what I'm doing, and perhaps give you ideas for things you could try in your own work. I haven't worked my way through this yet properly. My head hasn't really sorted it out yet. It will do one day. I'll eventually work out whether this is something I want to carry on exploring with, or whether it's something I don't. And I'm going to leave that there, because I'd better go and get myself sorted for my appointment and stuff. So you look after yourselves and find time to be creative, and thank you for joining me. Bye bye for now.